Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be on this vintage Seiko calculator watch. So as usual, this watch is from Japan. It's a vintage watch. As you can probably tell, it doesn't look brand new, but it's overall in pretty good shape. So I'm just going to be talking about the different features of the watch and whether I think it's worth it. So I'll start with a bit of background information. So before smartwatches, I think wristwatches were a lot more diverse. So some watches, you could tell, okay, all watches you can tell the time, but other ones had like chronograph features, GMT features, digital watches could tell you the day, the date, all those features like that. But really in like the 1970s, 1980s, you started seeing some really cool watches being born. And calculator watches, I think, are up there. Now, when you think of a calculator watch, you probably think of something like Casio, because to my knowledge, I think Casio is the only watch brand that still makes calculator watches. So just to let you guys know, as you can see, Seiko also used to make calculator watches. And I actually saw this calculator watch at the Seiko Museum in Japan. So it's kind of cool that I see a living, breathing Seiko calculator watch here in my home. So a few things to note. So before we get to the calculator function, this thing is entirely made of metal. Like if I give it a tap, this whole watch is made of stainless steel. And for a typical analog watch, like let me pull ahead, typical, mechanical watch, typical with a, typical watch face, this is already made of stainless steel. Digital watches are usually cheap. So, a lot of them aren't made of stainless steel, but this one, the whole thing is made of metal, which makes it feel way more premium than your typical Casio digital watch. So that's one thing to note. Second thing, pretty big display, I would say. And man, it is hard to read this watch. Not just for the camera, but even in real life, I will say that this watch is a little bit hard to read, even in bright daylight. There is a backlight. Let's see if I can get it to activate. Yeah, you can see there's just a small backlight, and at least it works. I'm actually quite impressed that it still works after all these years. I'm not sure how old this watch is, but I want to say from the 1980s. So all that aside, this is a calculator watch. So let's see if we can get the calculator running. So if I press this button here, and again, I apologize for the weird viewing angle, but this is the only way I can show you on camera. Right now it says 0, so it's calculator mode. This is the day-date mode. So you can see it says, what does that say? The 1st on a Monday, which it's not. I just haven't set the time yet. And you can see it's counting the seconds. If I press it again, that is how you get to calculator mode. So I haven't tested all the functions because, to be honest, I actually don't know all the functions of a calculator. Like the M's, I actually don't know what the M's are. I've never learned in my life. Probably should have searched this up before the video, but we're just gonna do some basic math. Let's do a 9. So you can see it changes to a 9. Let's do a 9 plus 3. 9 plus 3 should equal 12. Equals 12. So works like a calculator. I can clear it, goes back to 0. So that works mostly fine. These buttons are really small. I will say it's kind of hard to operate this watch because the buttons are small. Also some of the numbers, let's try an 8. You have to push pretty hard to get the 8. Let's do an 8, divide it by 2. Sorry, I hope you can see that. 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. So it works. I don't think you would actually use this practically because it is so hard to use. If you want to cheat on a test, you would probably get caught so fast because you really have to push the buttons in. It's almost like you need like a little pin to push these buttons because they're small. Just over the years, they're kind of finicky to use, but it still works at least, which I think is really cool. So that part works. And as for the timer function, I didn't realize like if you press all these buttons, I can't change the time. And that's what I was kind of confused about. I thought it was broken, but you're actually supposed to hold down this button and then it should switch to a time function. Sorry, wait, it is not push, it is actually pull. Yes, and then you can, I think, change the time. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, now I remember. So this watch is kind of interesting in that most digital watches, you don't pull out the crown. You usually don't. It's usually just buttons, but this one you actually pull out the crown in order to change the time. So a little bit of an interesting tidbit. This bracelet here is, I don't think it's original. I mean, it is a Seiko bracelet, but I don't think it's original to this watch, but I'm not too sure. But again, doesn't matter. I don't know. At least it is a Seiko bracelet, and I think it's actually a solid link bracelet. It is not rolled links, so it's a little bit more premium, pretty slim. Let's get this on the wrist. So you can see specs will be in the description if you want to know the dimension and the sizes, but it just fits my 6-inch wrist. Kind of gives you that like nerdy Casio look, but it is Seiko. That's the first thing. And second, all metal, which makes it a lot more premium. So I think it looks pretty decent. Main drawbacks of this watch, in my opinion. So one, this watch is vintage, and the display, especially for digital watches, they don't seem to hold very well. You can see it's quite dim. Like if I point it down, you can barely see the time. You got to get at the right angle. So that's kind of a downside, because the point of a watch is to read the time, but the other point is to make it look nice. And I think this watch looks pretty nice, but still, display's not great. The calculator function is honestly, I want to say, useless. I mean, the buttons are nice. They're also metal. The writing for the numbers and everything, the math signs, they're all in good condition, but it's kind of hard to push them. Even if the pushers like worked really well, it's just the buttons are too small. I don't think anyone actually uses a calculator watch for its intended purpose. It's more just for the aesthetic. So, you know, those are things to keep in mind. And of course, price, I want to say this is like $200 to $300 Canadian, depending on the condition. So it's definitely expensive. And I think a lot of that comes from the material and just because it's vintage. So just know that if you just wanted the calculator function and you don't mind it, you know, feeling a bit cheaper, you can definitely get like a Casio data bank calculator watch for a lot cheaper compared to a watch like this. It's not the same feeling. And of course, like, I don't know, I feel like this one's cooler in a sense. It's just much better material. But yeah, you can get the calculator vibe without spending a few $100s. So just keep that in mind. But if you're like a huge Seiko fan like I am, you know, you want to expand your Seiko collection to show a bunch of different watches, then I think this is a great addition. And yeah, Seiko doesn't make calculator watches anymore. They actually don't make digital watches at all. They've kind of pulled out of that sphere. It's mostly pretty much all Casio now. I think Citizen makes some, they make some like analog digital watches, like hybrids, but in terms of pure digital, it's pretty much just Casio. So it's cool to see another Japanese brand also have a digital watch in their collection. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing, you know, this unique Seiko vintage calculator digital watch. And as always, thank you again for watching. Subscribe for more videos. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.